What's your I tried to do a nice thing, but it ended in disaster story? Not me, but my brother. He tried to catch a mouse to set it outside so that our cats wouldn't kill it. Long story short, he tried to grab it as it was running under the fridge, ended up snapping its neck and killing it. Accidentally, obviously. On the subway, an older gentleman with a cane gets on, drops his backpack on a seat, then crosses to the other side of the car for some reason. Doors close. He turns back. Train starts moving. He starts falling towards me. I try to catch him as best I can, with the speed of his movement, plus the train's momentum, plus his weight, all combined with the weird angle I caught him at. I tear the frick out of one of the muscles in my forearm. He still ends up on the floor, but he didn't hit his head since I caught his shoulders. He swings his cane up and shatters the window to the door, though thankfully it has a protective film so it doesn't go anywhere. He starts swearing, so I get up cradling my arm that could well be broken for all I knew at that moment, and walked away. I didn't need another injury if he was I didn't catch him well enough. Good deeds don't go unpunished. I also couldn't ice it for 30-45 minutes because the person with the keys to where I was working that day ended up sleeping in late. It took months before I could carry anything with that arm. I was throwing my wife of 6 years a surprise birthday party and went through her phone to get contact info for her friends. Found recent text messages to an ex-boyfriend saying how much he missed him and wanted to be back with him. But she's my ex-wife now. I was up for a promotion at work. One of my co-workers, a single 23-year-old mom of 2 kids, also wanted it. I was far more qualified and knew it was going to be offered to me, a gay man with no kids, so I had a meeting with management and told them I stepped down so she could have the money and experience for her kids. 3 months later she got with this guy and got obsessive. Texted all day, always on the phone arguing with him if he so much as looked at another girl, but then started calling out sick all the time and not doing any work at all. Finally she got fired. Last freaking time I ever did anything like that again. One of my best friends was having a really bad day at work on his first day on the job and started texting me about it while he was on break. I Snapchatted his girlfriend, who was a good friend at the time, and told her about it while also saying if anyone would know how to cheer him up it's you. She said she'd do it and made a surprise date plan to make his day better. A few hours after he got back from work later I ask her how it went and she proceeds to rip me a new one for an hour about how if her boyfriend is having a bad day she doesn't need me telling her and she could figure it out herself. That's just her being an butt. Giving someone a heads up engaging someone's loved ones to help is a really nice thing to do. Not as extreme as other people's, but for Mother's Day when I was 13 I tried to make my mum scrambled eggs and bacon for breakfast because they were her favorite. I added too much milk to the eggs, meaning they couldn't cook properly and ended up setting fire to the bacon. The son still ate it all with a smile on her face. I used to work as a waitress and had a couple come in and order the all-you-can-eat special. They ended up only eating 1 plate of food so I offered to only charge them for the 1 plate of food instead of the all-you-can-eat since it's cheaper. I made the change to their bill and brought it back to them. Later they complained to a manager saying that I was being rude to them. So since it wasn't a significant discount they thought I was trying to imply that they were poor. I was just trying to be nice but dang excuse the heck out of me. Went to an auto parts store to get something. Don't remember what. Saw a woman outside staring under the hood of her car with an I have no idea what I'm looking at sort of vibe. It was super hot that day and she had a bunch of kids with her. I asked the guy inside if he knew what was going on, and he said she needed a new battery but couldn't afford their cheapest one. I'm not wealthy but I've always believed in doing what you can to help others and I had already paid my bills and had enough to swing a new battery for her. So I told him to grab whatever battery she needed. I walked out with the battery and said to the woman, I heard you needed a new battery and I know you didn't ask anyone to help but I hope it is okay that I took care of getting one for you. Or something to that tune. She screamed really loud, get the frick out of my face. White people always trying to help somebody. So I got the frick out of her face and returned the battery. On the way back to my car I looked at one of the kids and they mouthed I'm sorry. Thanks for trying. I nodded and drove away. White people always trying to help somebody. That's a first for me in terms of either insults or compliments. I washed me girlfriend's clothes once, as we lived together. It turns out all her things shrunk in the dryer and she had to buy some new shirts. We are married now, but it was a disaster at the time. Planned an intervention for my bestie. She found out and accused me of trying to turn everyone against her. All the friends that helped me plan the intervention suddenly turned on me and not only decided that enabling her addictions was the better route, they also told her the intervention was 100% me and they were forced to go along with it. What? I was so pissed I never spoke to any of them again. None of them are friends with each other anymore and the addict is with a guy that regularly beats her. I haven't seen her in about 8 years but people I know have seen her and it's always the same story that she's drunk or strung out. When I was a child I thought janitors were paid by how much trash they picked up. Imagine a little piece of shit waddling up to you dropping his bag of chips on the floor in front of you and smiling at you like he did you a freaking favor. As a cleaner I find this hilarious. I also want to add that we definitely do not get paid by the amount of trash we collect. I may suggest this to the union reps next meeting though. I was a manager at a warehouse job. One of the young kids came into my office and said he couldn't work for us anymore, but also said he can't afford not to. He was in a tough spot. I told him to start looking and applying for jobs and to use me as a reference. Offered to let him out of work for interviews and just trying to be supportive in general. He stays for about 6 months past our conversation and starts underperforming drastically. He even stopped showing up consistently. We had a few conversations about performance attendance, and eventually I told him we were done being flexible and he needed to either do his job or stop coming in. He stopped coming in. Then I got a call from the labor board that said we wrongfully dismissed him. After investigation they found I had no evidence of our conversation 6 months earlier and we had to pay him severance. Unfortunately, that was the last time I tried to be so accommodating. I was a young manager who learnt a valuable lesson here in documentation. Unfortunately, that was the last time I tried to be so accommodating. No, that wasn't the problem. The problem was you didn't document his performance problems. This is why write-ups exist. One time I saw an old man and his dog alone in the bar. He looked sad and alone, so I thought I would be nice and go up to speak to him. I was slightly drunk and extra friendly. He immediately started telling me about how he and his dog were 1,000-year-old aliens, and I suddenly realized why everyone had been staying far away from him. I tried to excuse myself for a few minutes before he pulled a ukulele out of nowhere and started loudly serenading me with a love song in front of the whole bar. I ended up on more than one Snapchat story that night. A couple years ago in high school I would volunteer feeding the homeless once a week through the school. Basically, we made some cheap meals in our cafeteria, think mac and cheese, pastas, salad, and would bring the meals to a nearby park where a lot of homeless people camped out. The program was run by one of the school's administrators. One of the weeks I was helping hand out food, I saw an older woman standing off to the side who looked kinda disheveled. She didn't have a meal so, trying to be as generous as possible, I walk over with a meal in hand. I offered her the food, but she politely declined. Not one to be turned away easily, I insisted that she should take some. At this point she kindly informed me that she was Mr. School Administrator's wife. I was absolutely mortified and started apologizing profusely. She laughed and said it was fine, but right after this I saw her talking to her husband and he did not look very happy. But the worst part was that the next day I had an interview to be on the equivalent of my school's ASB. The interview was with a current ASB member and a random administrator. Can you guess who? Yep, the guy whose wife I mistook for a homeless woman. Long story short, I did not get that position. TLDR. I mistook a school administrator's wife for a homeless woman while trying to be charitable, and subsequently screwed myself from an ASB position since my interview was with said school administrator. I invited the girl everyone hated to my birthday and she made it about herself, bullied my friends, talked about it openly to people who I couldn't invite or didn't want to, talked about me behind my back for months saying that it sucked and her family is so poor, yes, so I don't do birthday parties anymore really. My little brother at the time, probably around 15, had picked up a huge nug of weed and had nothing to smoke it with. I went to work, I was 16 at the time, and figured he would have the munchies after I clocked out of my shift. I called his cell phone to see if he wanted Taco Bell. Because I'm a good sister, I would pick it up for him. Well, he didn't answer his phone, so I called our house's landline and my mom answered. I was vague in telling her why I was going to Taco Bell so late at night, but asked my mom if my brother wanted anything, thinking that he had already smoked. She walked into his room with him and this huge nugget making a pipe out of tinfoil. She had him flush the weed down the toilet and I came home to my very Italian mother panicking that he's ruining his life. Fast forward a decade, now I'm the stoner and he's a correctional officer in our hometown. I offered to let a good friend I hadn't seen in 2 years stay at my house for a week while he was battling a tough home situation and drug addiction in another city. I thought it would be good for him to come out and stay with me for a bit, especially since he was trying to kick his addiction back home but his parents were enablers, and also that I missed him because he was my best friend. Instead, he decided to treat the week at my house as a drug retreat and spent the whole time getting high, trashing my house, and reconnecting with the wrong people. He used to live in my city but his parents kept moving all of them around, so there were people he knew here. It is also important to note I'm not much of a drug person and was consistently encouraging him to kick his addiction. We were best friends since we were maybe 7. Keep in mind this happened when we were both 18. After he left, I cut all ties with him temporarily. I've slowly reconnected with him recently, and he is still trying to kick his habit. But that week with him living with me was heck on earth and very nearly killed my best friendship I had. It basically did kill it for a few months. Guys, please don't experiment with drugs, especially if you know you are likely to get hooked. If not for yourself, don't try them for the sake of the people that care for you. If you do get addicted, you won't be the only person to suffer the consequences. The people that love you will also have to go through a battle. People do love you. Don't throw that love away for a short thrill and a long road to recovery. Tried to help my alcoholic using cousin a job. He was making progress with his alcoholism and hadn't used in a while, so I talked with a buddy who runs a landscaping business. I vouched for my cousin and told him how hard of a worker he was, which is true because he would work me to death when I needed another pair of hands. I was very upfront with his shortcomings but was also upfront with his progress and just asked for a fair chance. Have them my word he'd work. I got called a week later and was told my word means nothing now. He showed up late, left early, stole tools, and just went missing on job sites. I worked in a memory clinic doing diagnostic tests. This lady came in with her sons. They told me that she had begged to come because she thought there might be an issue with her memory. She confirmed this, saying if there is a problem she wanted help and medication. At the end of the test I asked again if she wanted to know the results. She again confirmed. I told her that unfortunately she did have a memory problem, that from her history she may benefit from medication and I would arrange for her to see the consultant, attending in the US I think. She then told me in no uncertain terms what an awful person I was, that I should be ashamed to do this to people and I was wrong. Also we shouldn't have sent her an appointment, at her request, because basically we were trying to trick old people into giving up their independence. She was very eloquent. Me and her sons just sat open-mouthed. Classic dementia. I once held a door open for an old man who was using a cane and had his arm in a sling and cast. I was just trying to be polite, but he was totally offended and he proceeded to chew me out, telling me that he didn't need some woman to hold the door for him because he was not a cripple. It was incredibly awkward. First and only time I've ever had to apologize for offering to help someone. Sir, I hold doors for everyone, so it's not all about you. I booked a hotel room for me and my husband as a surprise a couple of years back. It was fairly nice, not super high end or anything, but over £100 for the night. Mid-range for a small town like mine I suppose. Unfortunately, the day before we were due to stay there, I had a pretty spectacular panic attack and spent the whole weekend in bed feeling sorry for myself. Not my lovely big cloud soft hotel bed, but my own squeaky butt IKEA pose bed, as the hotel was paid for on a non-refundable basis. I thought I'd go on Facebook and ask my friends if anyone wanted a free weekend away. A girl I knew a little sent me a message saying she would love the room if it was still free. She'd not long ago had a baby. She was struggling a little and she could use an evening away, so I gave her all the details, check-in times, my phone number in case she needed to give it to them, and all the other necessary paperwork. including the fact that it was a no smoking room. I called the hotel and asked them to change the name the booking was in, which they did, but they couldn't change anything else. Didn't think it would be an issue at all. Anyway, she went. She stayed. She had a lovely relaxing weekend. And on the Sunday night after she checked out, I got a very angry call from the hotel manager. Apparently the room was trashed. Food everywhere. In the carpets, on the bed, even on the curtains. There was evidence of smoking and drug paraphernalia in the bathroom. I explained what had happened, but as the booking was all done by me with my bank card, I was liable. They charged me another £100 for the room because they had to clean it instead of let it, plus extra for the cleanup. I got stiffed nearly £300 for a hotel room I never even got to stay in. I messaged the girl to at least get some of the cash back, but she blocked me on all platforms. It was a lot of money for me, and it meant I didn't feed my family very well for the next month or so, but hey, lesson learned. I'll let the room go empty next time. Better to lose £100 than £300. Not my story. A friend's mom lives in the Sierra Nevada mountains. One of her husband's favorite foods is Cornish game hens. So he goes away on a trip, and she decides she'll surprise him and buy some. Now, I guess at a certain point, they're no longer good to eat. So just before that point, she went to go kill them and prepare them. She went to kill one by decapitating it and couldn't bring herself to do it. After some time, she mustered up the will to go ahead with it, lopped one's head off, and it literally ran around spraying blood everywhere. She was beside herself. Fast forward, her husband comes home and she comes clean. At this point, they're no longer viable to eat. He decides he'll take them over to the river near their house, kill them, and let the bottom feeders in the river do the rest. He throws the first one in the river. When he realizes that this dead hen is floating, he panics and jumps in the river to get it. People swim in this river. He comes back to the house deciding the best bet is to drive up to the mountains, drop them all off, and let nature take its course. A day later, his mom receives a call from their neighbor. The call goes something like this. Neighbor, hey, mom, you have Cornish game hens, right? Mom, nervously, yes. Neighbor, I've got a favor to ask of you. I was in the mountains hunting yesterday, and some butthole left 6 Cornish game hens on the side of the road to die. I couldn't leave them. Would you be able to take them? Mom, oh, that's horrible. Sure, we can take them. The husband ultimately had to kill them and dispose of them. LOL. That is how we ended up with chickens one winter. Came out to shovel snow. 6 hens and 3 roosters were eating feed in our front yard. Guess they saw a farm and figured we'd adopt them instead of letting them starve. I work at a gas station, and a woman who was obviously going through some hard times paid for $2 and some change in gas, so I set her pump for an extra $15 and paid for it myself. I forgot I had bills coming out the next morning and it overdrafted my account because only one was able to go through. I hope she really needed that gas because it cost me $45 for the gas and overdraft fee. I was at a buffet lunch for work. There is this nice looking girl and she had crumbs all over her face somehow. So I thought I would do her a solid and tell her. She said, "That's my face." I look a little closer and see that it is lots of dry skin. So that didn't really work out. I did see her a little later and she had obviously gone away and sorted it out. I decided to double down and told her, "Good work on the face." She called me an butthole and now we are friends. Sometimes if you frick up, best to acknowledge it by making an butt out of yourself again is how I often play it. So I had a friend a few years ago. She was super insecure and was messaging me about how she doesn't like her figure. She thought she was fat. Now picture me, a super awkward, can't communicate for her life but wants to make people happy girl. So I say to her she isn't fat, but if she's unhappy with her figure, I'd be happy to help her find a sport or diet that works for her so she can feel better. She interpreted this as me calling her fat, and she told all our friends who decided not to speak to me. At the beach, some kid's ball went in the water and they couldn't swim. I was out of the water sitting and I said I could get it for them. Right before grabbing the ball I got stung by a stingray on my foot. A year later a neighbor's dog got out of the house and started running all over the place. The owner was an older woman and there was no way she was going to catch the dog. So I chased it for about 30 minutes all over the neighborhood and through the golf course next to our neighborhood. Once I finally got up to the dog, it bit me on the hand and almost got infected. Frick that dog. I had a really good friend. One day really good friend comes back from boot camp. He flunked out somehow and his mom was kicking him out. He was 18 and had nowhere to go. He called me and asked if he could stay with me a few nights. I bought him a burner phone and basic service on it so that he can apply to jobs. Fast forward to 3 months later, I'm checking my debit card statements. The dumb butt used my debit card to buy League of Legends skins. He got evicted a second time in 3 months over $25 on a free-to-play game. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.